Right, I'm going to get started. So this is the card I'll be making today. It's a clean, I suppose, clean and simple to some extent shaker card. Normally I do the edge-to-edge shaker cards, but I've done one of those on a live previously, so I've gone for the aperture shaker element this evening with some nice clear circular shaker pieces inside, because I've gone for a fairly muted down colour palette this evening. So I'm going to get started because there is quite a lot to it. So let's get all my pieces together. So I'll be working on an USA 2 this evening because the die that I'm using called for a US A2 size as opposed to a UK A6. I don't actually have one of these sets in the USA, a UK A6, so that's something I need to get myself. So yeah, working on a US A2, and as such I've cut a card blank down, just a white regular piece of cardstock, 300 GSM, and then I'll be working on some super smooth cardstock for the background, so I'll stick that down, and then I've got my vellum for the panel as well. So for the main background image, hi Scott. So for the main background image, I'll be using the Winter Vine. I haven't used this one in a live as yet. I won't be using black ink. As I say, I'll be toning it down. The whole colour theme, the whole colour palette will be a lot more muted than my usual. So I'll be using greys and quite muted greens on there. Hiya Karen, how are you? So for that, I'm going to take my pre-cut panel and my stamp. In fact, I may not use that pre-cut panel. I may actually, let's have a look to see, because I need some space around the stamped area for the stamps to cling on to. That's fine, I'll work with that. So I'm going to, hiya Karen T, how are you? I'm going to be using a stamping platform. But first of all, I'm going to, sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place this evening because there was quite a lot to it. But first of all, I'm going to put the colour down. So that's what I'll do first, is apply the colour. So just to, I've got my usual details here, but I've changed up the product of the week this week, the way in which I offer it at a discount. So normally I'll put it under product of the week, and it's there on the website for everyone to purchase at 20% off for that week up until the next live. This week I've made, and going forward, I've made it exclusively for those people that watch the live. So if anyone wanted to go on and purchase the stamp, you would need to input the code VINE20 at the checkout. That would give you your 20% off, and it's available for just 10 of these stamps, so 10 customers only, or 10 units, whichever is first. Yeah, and when them 10 units go, then the offer will no longer be valid. The offer will have expired. So this is just for those people that are watching tonight, so don't share the code. I'm very well aware of who's watching, so don't be sneaky and share the code with non-watchers. It is exclusive only for watchers this evening. I've also introduced a new postage and packaging option at checkout, whereby it once was £3 minimum and that was quite hefty for one set of stamps. But now if you buy one set of stamps, for example, if you went on there tonight and bought the Vine, which I'm using today, you can get postage and packaging for just £1.55, which is the cost price at with Royal Mail at the post office. So you'll be getting your postage at cost at £1.55 for one set of stamps. So by the time the stamps have been reduced, and then you've paid your £1.55, it balances itself out, and effectively you're getting nearly free postage, or maybe free postage. I haven't quite worked it out. There is a little bit of bad news, I'm afraid. I did have to increase my prices. So the A6 stamps have gone up from £11 to £12, unfortunately, but it's £1 difference. Hopefully it won't make an awful lot of difference to the customer, but it certainly will to me. And I've had to do that because the price that I brought them in at, the £11, was introductory offer. It was never going to last. So yeah, it was imminent and the time has come. But certainly by the time you've used your discount code tonight and the £1.55, but the £1.55 is limited to just one set of stamps. By the time you go up to 2 sets of stamps, it goes back up to the regular postage price of £3, so do bear that in mind. But yeah, by the time you've used your discount code with the exclusive postage option, it should still balance itself out to effectively free P&P. Right, so got that out of the way. So I will be using something a little bit different in terms of ink. I'm going to be using my Alt-New dye inks tonight, and brushes, which I'm not too keen on. In fact, I might not even... No, I will have to use those this evening. So you have to bear with me while I apply this colour, because it does take a while to go down. At first you don't actually see the colour going down, and it's quite patchy, but the finished effect is nice, and that's what we're going for. I'm just going to bring in my messy mat, if I can find the thing, or just a piece of scrap card. A piece of scrap paper will do. This is an old packing slip. Oh, Karen, that doesn't sound too nice. However, in the long run, worth it, I should think. So, this ink, they come as part of a quad set of miniatures. This is part of... Okay. So, it's part of Nature's Wonders, the lighter green. The darker green is part of Green Meadows. They're Alt-New. And the lighter green, I was looking for yellow originally, but it still has the same effect. The colour of that is named Misty Moor, and the darker is Minty Green. Sorry, Minty Mint. So I can't tell if it's the use of brushes or the ink pads themselves, which appear to be juicy. If I was to dab it, there appears to be quite a lot of ink coming off of there, but it does take a lot of effort to get the ink onto the card, which is a little bit frustrating, to be honest with you, because by the time I'm done, it's quite painful. So now I'm going in with the Minty Mint. It's an original name, isn't it? So I don't know if you can see, but it is quite patchy, but by the time we put the ink down, it doesn't show up too much. And this is just it, isn't it, with handmade, is that, you know, none of us are looking for perfect. I think I've said it before and I'll say it again, but us as the makers are worse than the recipients. We're our own worst critics, I think. Right, so I'm going to put a bit here. So I'm just going in patches at the moment, and then actually what I'll do, because I've got both the brushes out, I'll work both at the same time. So as I see a space come up, I'll fill it in with whichever colour suits. Try not to mix the brushes up at the same time. It will happen, you watch. By the time I've done this panel, you mark my words, I'll have used the wrong brush in the wrong ink. I'm not a lover of these brushes, honestly. Hiya Heidi. I am using the Pink Frog 300 GSM Super Smooth, but I don't know if it's the... In fact, there's not much ink coming off of it, so it's a labour of love at the moment. I think it's the ink pads which are the problem, because I've never had this sort of problem before. I just thought I'll try something different and use some ink pads which I wouldn't normally use. Need to use them, but then I'm my own worst enemy, really, because I always go to the same ones. That's probably why they're not very juicy. They're probably dried out before I can use the things. But by the time we stamp over it, it's forgotten about. So I'm going to leave it there. It does look really bad at the moment, but trust the process. It does bring itself up to that standard. So maybe once it's down, the ink moves around a little bit. Who knows? But if it doesn't, I shall bin it. I mean, the purpose of this was a tutorial, so that you'll get. Right, so now the stamping. So this is where I'm going to bring in the stamping platform. Thank you, Heidi. Oh, that would be handy, Karen, if you can get private. That will solve your problems. I think private is the way to go now if you can afford it. If you've got the opportunity, grab it with both hands. So this is the winter vine. Feels a bit feels as though there's some residue on the back there, but it should stick okay. So I'm going to place it down, find an opportunity somewhere in amongst that to put my... No, see, I've buggered up already. I need to put my magnets down, find an opportunity to grab a piece of card along here, you know, in the spaces here around the edges. But I may have just got away with it, but we'll soon find out. Oh yeah, lemon and lime, citrus. Just picking that up without picking the card up with it. I've definitely got some residue on the back of that stamp from embossing powder residue. It's not clinging as best it should, but hopefully it will serve its purpose this evening. So I'm going in with Distress Oxide Hickory Smoke for my stamping, my inking. So these are very firm, these ink pads, so it's just a case of going back and forth a few times to leave a good enough impression of that ink. And then bringing that over and hoping for the best. Now I can't do that because the pain. So I'm bringing in me ice hockey, what is it, a puck? That's it, ice hockey puck. I'm just giving that once over, and just hopefully when I lift that up, there we go. When I lift it up, we didn't want the paper to come away, or the card to come away with it. Sorry about the glare on the stamping platform with this. It should only be temporary, just while I'm using the platform. Karen, I'm very mixed emotions when the kids go back. On one hand, I miss them. I just miss having them rattling around the house with me, you know. But on the other hand, I quite like to get back to my routine. So yeah, it's a little bit bittersweet when they go back. I don't try and send them off waving and smiling too optimistically, because I'm just going to use some wet tissue to clean that stamp off with, because I forgot to get my wet cloth out. Oh, actually, I've got a spare. Yeah, I don't like to be too enthusiastic about waving them off, because we just don't know how many more times we're going to wave them off, do we? You know? One day it'll all be over, and I'll miss seeing them when they're grown and flee the nest. I don't think mine will ever flee the nest, to be honest with you. They got it too good at home. Right, so I'm just taking this away, popping that away. I'm actually going to clean that, I think, between now and the next time I use it, so that it sticks a little better. Oh, thanks, Mum. This is one of my, well, it's the first hand-drawn one that I did. And I'm very proud of it, actually. So, let's get rid of that stamping platform. The colours are more vibrant this time, but you can see what I mean when I say that it doesn't look so traumatizing now that I've stamped over it. It's all coming together, isn't it? But yeah, them fantastic, Mum. Oh, I know what you're saying. You're complimenting me. You're very kind. Thank you. Oh, I thought both of yours had gone, Karen. I thought that's what you were saying recently, that they've both gone. My bad, sorry. Right, so the next thing is to create the shaker element. So I did do some steps ahead of time, because I didn't want to keep you too long doing all the boring bits and pieces. So I've cut the frame, and that will essentially go round and cover up all the adhesions, all the seams, all the workings of the shaker element. I've cut my acetate out, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is stick the acetate down to the back of the frame using some double-sided tape. am I doing? Sorry guys. I seem to have got myself into a bit of a pickle with the tape. Oh, what's happened there then? That's come out of the, oh goodness me. Yeah. Right, I'll come back to that later, but I don't know how that's happened. It's all fell apart. Right, so you just need to, I'm just going to stick this. So place the acetate where I need it. And stick the tape down. And that will secure the window. That edge. Hiya Mandy, how are you? That's okay. It's lovely to have you here. Right, so I've stuck all sides down. And I will need to peel that off, but I'm not going to peel it off the backing paper of that. I'm not going to do that just until I know exactly what my next step is, which I think is to stick the panel onto the card. So let's do that. So I've topped up all my glue bottles. I've been quite organised. So I'm just sticking that central. And then that should go over quite nicely there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pop that aside. I'm going to get some foam tape. So this is just a small roll of 3mm. Looks about 3mm by about 5mm foam tape. You will need to, I never used to until I realised there was a problem, take the backing paper off because the foam tape won't stick to it. So we need to there we go. Right, one, just another 3 of the buggers to go. 2. Okay, so they're all gone. And then we're just going to run the foam tape along that double-sided tape. And we're going to take it as far as we can without overhanging. And then the next side needs to butt right up against that previous piece. And then again, in the same fashion, run it along the edge. Trim that without any overhang. Butt it up against the edge. Trim. And then last one, this can be the trickier one because you've got to get it up against 2 edges without leaving any gaps. We don't want any gaps, particularly with smaller shaker pieces, because they'll all come flying out when it's shaken. So that's my shaker element and the aperture in which the shaker pieces will go in. So what I'll need to do is place the shaker pieces in the centre of the card. So these are the shaker pieces I'll be using. Do you know what I find the hardest part of shaker cards is knowing exactly how many shaker pieces you're going to need. Because once it's stuck down, it's stuck down. And you can't make any adjustments. So I'm just going to pull it, shake them in. Now we don't want too many in there, because too many means that we're not going to see much of the image. And also they start clumping off and getting stuck behind the acetate panel. And they won't move. So I think that's quite sufficient. And I'm just going to stand up for this part. Once I take the backing off of here, I'm going to need to see from overhead that I'm placing this straight. The other option, if you have trouble getting things straight, or if you find the fact that they've already been placed quite difficult then to work around, what I've often done in the past, and actually I've got a bit braver, but for the sake of this live I should probably have done it, is just sandwich another, or stick down another acetate piece, put them elements straight onto here, and then seal it up with another acetate piece. And then that way you've got it all in one piece, ready to stick straight down onto your card. Oh, missed a bit. Right. And then just getting this. Right, that was definitely a hold your breath moment, but I think all pieces are secure. So there we go, there we have our shaker, the main element of the card, which is the shaker. And I think there's just about enough shaker pieces in there for my satisfaction. Karen, they came from somewhere like AliExpress, or I'm gonna hazard a guess with AliExpress, because at the time I bought them, I bought a ton of sequins and shaker pieces. So that's our shaker piece. The next part, the final part, is this beautiful dragonfly. Now the easy part is stamping it and colouring it. The hard part is cutting it. So you are going to have to see me cut this out, I'm afraid. But that is the last part of this card process. So it looks as though I've got a fair bit of time. I'm just going to get some water. Some water for my colour. Now for this I am going to bring back in the ink pads that I just used for the background, because I wanted all the colours to be consistent with one another. So I bring those back in. I will use just a large acrylic plate, and I'm just going to apply some of the ink onto the plate. There we go. And actually the first thing I should have done was stamp the image. So I did put some card aside for the image. And I'm going to need oh, sorry, Mum. Oh dear, is it the colours? Oops. Don't think that will work on... No, it won't work on there. So we'll use this stamping block. I'm going to go back in with that Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide. For now, I'm going to move that card so it don't get damaged. So yeah, I am stamping in the same manner that I did previously with Distress Oxides. And hopefully this will be first time it will be a good enough impression. Oh, the noise. That'll do. I just wanted, well, actually, here's my trail of thought. I wanted the background of this not to be black. But then I went to stamp the dragonfly in black and realised that then it didn't all tie in. If there's one, I'm not too keen on having too many different colours on a project, and if there's black it needs to make sense. So if the background was black it would have made sense because that's a main focal image, but for this it wouldn't have made sense for me if that was black. I don't know. It must be there must be some tisms in me, I think. Right, so I'm going to cut this out before I colour it. So normally I would leave about 1 mil or so around the image when cutting out, but I'm not going to this evening. I've actually got the dies, but I need to find them to cut them out more accurately, or to cut it out more accurately. That will leave a border, but for the purpose of this I'm going to cut it out right up to the edge. Now it would be easy if it weren't for all these little arms and legs splayed out everywhere. Just a nice dragonfly without arms or legs would have made my life a lot simpler. And you can guarantee I'm going to lose one of these arms or legs or whatever they are called. I'm pretty sure they're limbs. So sorry that you've got to see me do this part. I could have eliminated this part. It's actually gone a lot quicker this live than I anticipated. I'm not actually a huge fan of fussy cutting. Although top tip, I'm sure many of you know anyway, but with regards to fussy cutting, move the cardstock instead of the scissors that you're using, and you'll get a much more seamless cut. Not too many jagged edges. So if I go a little bit quiet, it's just me concentrating. And these scissors are fantastic. I find these so much easier to use when doing this sort of cutting. Right, so these little antennae up here are tiny and a real problem. So literally, I will end up losing one of them in this process. But what I can do is leave a little bit of space around them so that we don't chop any of them away, and then colour them in and expand them a little bit, but so cheating essentially, painting things in that weren't there originally. Dragonflies are beautiful, aren't they? What's the ones which are they're like dragonflies, but they're not quite. I think there's only very limited colours in them. They're not quite dragonflies. I think they're a lot smaller and a lot more common. Oh, that's the worst of it done. We've got one more limb to cut. I think we'll get round that. Just tidy that corner off a little bit there. I'm going to be going from that angle. Right, here goes another hold my breath moment. Hi Vicky, no you haven't at all, you're just, although you are at a boring part I'm afraid, where you have to watch me cut out. And then I'll be colouring. Just added some colour to this little beaut. Okay. So the legs look quite spindly. Oh, the arms look quite spindly. But that's the best I'm going to do without the dies. I need to find them. Right. Now to colour. Just going to add some water to that ink that we put down, and really roughly, there is no expertise or precision going on here. I'm just applying the darkest of the greens to the centre. And then the lightest to the outside of the leaves. Leaves? Wings. We're playing with wings here, not leaves. So it does fade as it dries. So while it dries, I'm going to add some hickory smoke to my palette here. And I'm just going to go in through the body and the limbs. Oh, it never stops for a teacher, does it, Vicky? I appreciate that there's so much more to it than parents get to see that goes on behind the scenes. It's non-stop. We appreciate you. Literally just going over the limbs, the body, just to fill in any white areas that I haven't managed to pick up or remove with the scissors. And then I'm going to go in one last time now that I've given that a chance to dry a little, and just, in fact, I'm going to lay down some more colour. Doesn't need an awful lot, but I'm just going to add some more. Actually, I'm going to be really sloppy, but without even washing my brush off, I'm just going to go back and forth there. It would be nice to use more vibrant colours for this dragonfly. So maybe I'll try a different colour palette next time, different colour scheme, and see how that pays out. That'll do. So I am going to give that a little blast with the heat tool. It shouldn't do, Karen. It just depends on the ink that you use. To be honest, I'm not an expert in inks. And I don't know which one it is. I think it's the dye inks. The dye inks are the ones which are permanent. And the pigment inks are the ones which might move. And the pigment and the water-based inks are the ones which might move when you add water. But I'm not very good with all that. I suspect Vicky might be your best person to ask there. I think Vicky's got some more expertise than I have, or may have some more expertise than I have. Vicky, would you know which inks are the best to use when using water? Teal and purple don't fly off Dragonfly. Oh, when I was drying it. Right, and that is the worst of it done. That is the card done. And now all I'm going to do, actually, is I'm going to add some sparkle to the... So, Vicky, when it comes to using water on stamped images, which ink pads is it that you would use to avoid the colour from the ink pad running? I'm not sure if I got it right or wrong, but I said that the pigment inks and the water-based inks are the ones which would run, and the permanent dye inks are the ones which wouldn't. But I wonder if... Dad! I wonder if you would be able to clarify that. So I'm just using my Spectrum Noir Sparkle just to add some really lovely subtle shimmer to the wings. It needed a little bit of something, so I absolutely love the effect that these give. It's such a classy layer of sparkle, just the right amount. Not necessarily there at first glance, but if you hold it at the right angle, and I'll show you, I don't know if that will pick up because there's a delay, but I'm going to try my luck there and see if you can see the shimmer in that. And now all that's left to do is to stick him down. So actually, the first one I put here, I might actually put this one here, see how we get on with that. I was debating over it. Oh, I've just thrown a glue at myself. I was debating. Dye inks don't run. Thank you, Vicky. So I'm going to bend his little wings up a little bit. It is a he. I've decided it's a he. And then just... Now what you don't want to do, incredibly unforgiving, it looks very scruffy if you get it on the acetate. In fact, I didn't put any on his little legs. Yeah, it looks very scruffy if you get the glue on acetate. There's no getting rid of it. There's no moving it. So once it's down, you just have to leave it and live with the fact that you got glue there. So that's it. That's our Dragonfly shaker card. It took me a while there, and I remembered what we were talking about. They very good, Vicky, very good. Oh, did you see the shimmer, did you? So, just a gentle reminder how the offer of the week or the product of the week is going to work out. It is on the website. It is still under product of the week, but you will need to use a discount code, which is just exclusive to you guys. Type Vine20 at checkout to get 20% off, but there's only 10 of those available at that price. And do make use of the special or the new P&P option, which is £1.55 for one set of stamps, as opposed to the £3 flat rate for as little as one, which it was previously, which seemed a little bit unfair, but I've got around it. and we now have the 155 option just for one set of stamps. So do not share that code, that is just for you guys. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mandy. You guys are lovely. So there we have it. So it was a bit brave doing a shaker card live, but it needed to be done, I think, as opposed to using Distress Oxides, although they are my favourite. So I'm sure I'll be back next week using my good old Distress Oxides. But it made a nice change, didn't it? Right. Thank you, Karen. I am going to love you and leave you. That's not bad timing, actually, considering there was some bits of some tricky elements into that card. But yeah, I'm going to love you and leave you, and hopefully I'll see many of you again next week, same time, same place. Right, have a good evening. Thanks again for joining. Thanks, Scott. Night, everyone.